have conversations in so many areas of our life, and rightly or wrongly, a lot of those conversations get emotional very quick. And that is certainly true when it comes to talking about finances. And that's why I'm so excited today to have Elke Rubach here with us, the founder of Rubach Wealth, this holistic family company where she brings her perspectives on having the important conversations, taking the emotion out of it, and how she is very strategically utilizing AI and automation in her business to create better customer experiences and, as I said at the beginning, better conversations. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Humanize Automation, where I get to have amazing conversations with incredible people, giving different perspectives to this whole conversation on what in the world is happening with generative AI, automation, and are we really staying human while we're doing it? Well, I believe we are, and we're going to find out what our guest today believes. So Elke Rubach is a financial planner, wealth management person, guru, whatever you want to say, extraordinaire. And she has founded and runs Rubach Wealth. It's a holistic family practice. And this is very, very important when it comes to financial planning. And we're going to get more and more in that today. But Elke, I want to welcome you to the show and get started with like some of your backstory. Like, give us a short version. Who are you? What did you do? And where are you now?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me here. I love your energy and your podcast, so thank you. Let me give you it's a very long story, but I'm going to give you the very, very, very short version of it. I'm a reformed lawyer, practiced law for many years, came to Canada for a year. Long story short, I'm still here. That was 22 years ago. Decided that after being in a law firm, I moved to a bank. And that's where I saw that people made financial decisions without a clear plan. And in their 50s, 60s, people end up with a bunch of really good things, but they don't remember why they bought it, what they do for them, and why they still have it. So when you have all these things, it's real noise. My engine, why I'm driven to make sure that people normalize the money conversation and have actual conversations with the family, comes from the time when I was little, that my mom thought that my dad had it, my dad thought that my mom had it. In reality, nobody had it. My dad dies at 50, and my mom had to figure it out all on her own. Hindsight, it was so easy to plan if they had had a little bit of time talking about it. So 12 years ago, started the firm with the idea of normalizing money conversation, removing emotions, deciding based on facts, and helping people get rid of all the noise. We're being sold all the time. Let's make sure you have what you need and you need what you have.
I love it. Like, great job truncating what I'm sure is a massive story into a very condensed version. And I want to follow up one question on that. When you were, so from what I understand, right, you had this experience when you were a child, a lot of assumptions were made, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate. Like, I recently had to have an asset conversation with my parents that was spurred by my brother's father-in-law, a situation that they're in right now where he unfortunately fell into a coma. And it's like, is everything in order? Is it not? And I think people bring so much emotion to it because typically those conversations are reserved for what is typically a sad time, right? Death. But it's a fact. Like, we all die. To my knowledge, there's not something that makes us immortal anymore. So you took your personal experience, spun it with your professional experience, and created this company. But I love what you said about it being focused on having the conversations. Where did you kind of learn that art of the financial conversation? Was it the attorney lens, the bank lens, something else?
I'm incredibly blunt and practical. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. And what I do, call it a marketing spin, is let's not talk about the final conversation. Let's normalize the money conversation and have it every year or every 6 months. I mean, it doesn't have to be at every dinner, but like every now and then with my kids, I sit down with them and like, listen, guys, these are the accounts. This is what it looks like. This is the current plan. These are the acquisitions. These are the sales. This is where that's up. This is where it's down. These are the mortgage balances. These are the properties. Because a plan in my head is not worth $1.
Mm-mm.
They don't know. And funny enough, having those conversations, and for us, it's like open books. At some point I said, I have to go to the safe. And they had no idea what a safe is.
Huh.
And why should they've never been to the safe? They don't know that at the bottom of the bank, there's a place with keys and funky people watching literally paint dry because nobody goes to the safe. And it hit me. I'm like, of course, why would they know? They know about other stuff. So all those things that you think you've covered, it's not until you actually address them that they're like, oh, and now we're talking about, the safe and the mortgages. And, these are your your education funds. And this is how you withdraw them. I always say it's like clothes. Some people need bigger clothes and people need smaller clothes, but money's the same. Some have more, some have less. Never compare yourself to anyone because they're probably not telling you the truth, but live your own story and share it with your family.
I think that having those conversations, right, that you have with your family, with your kids, that because of the situation when you were young, like you learned about tangentially, right? Like when you're really young, you don't understand everything. But if you get used to hearing something, you then as a child even know how to ask better questions about it.
100%. And even, when they say, women and finance, and they're going to inherit trillions and trillions, I can't tell you how many times incredibly competent people come and tell me, this might be a dumb question, but I'm like, the exact same question a guy would ask. The thing is that you haven't done it. It's not that you can't do it. You haven't done it. And maybe it's not your specialty and maybe not your forte, but it's your money, your decisions, and the consequences of doing or not doing are yours. So my job is to show you what it looks like, whether you do or you don't do something. And then I make suggestions and you make decisions.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry when you put it that way. And I think that so many people have so much physical, mental, and emotional value tied up in money, right? For the sake of money, a single word that can mean different things to different people, but then also have their what I find in these conversations, because I had it myself, I'll be honest, like your ego gets tied up in it, and you have to extract that somehow.
And that's kind of part of my challenge, because money is money. Like it's really not different from when we used to barter with, seeds. Or the problem happens when people define themselves by their profession, by their net worth, because that can change overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So having awareness, and also for the family, if for some horrible reason the family's finances go down for whatever reason, the family needs to stay together, because you have to stay together through the good times and the bad times. How many times do you hear the expression that, when money goes out the window or out the door and love goes out the window, or one goes one way, one goes the other. I don't remember where, but kind of like that. Because it's true.
Yeah. And I like that you have regular conversations with your kids about this, because even if they don't understand the full details, again, it's this systematic desensitization, if you want to use a psychology term, but it's really just awareness, routine awareness that there is something called a 401k. There is something called an education fund. There is something called a trust. You just being aware that these things exist enable people to ask better questions. And I think a lot of people, I wasn't brought up talking about that type of thing, right? I did not know what questions to ask. And when I got my first financial planner, many, many years ago, it's like, okay, I'm anxious to have these conversations because I feel like I'm an intelligent person, but I don't know what accounts exist. I don't know what insurance options there are. I don't know any of this. And nor why would I, right? That's not my area of expertise. That's why you go to an expert, just like you go to a doctor when you're sick.
Yeah. And when you go to the doctor, you go to the heart doctor if you have a heart issue, not the knee doctor, right? And that's why we say we're a holistic family advisory, because we look at things from different lenses. We want people to understand that I can give you the most aggressive financial plan where your net worth can skyrocket, but it has to be tax efficient. So I need to work with your accountant or your tax planner, and it has to be documented in a will or two wills, or depending on the situation. And if it's not documented on the will, you might be dead, but then the plan doesn't work. My job is to be able to look at your kids in the eyes and say, this was the plan. It works.
Mm-hmm. And I love that. So when you're thinking about these conversations, and actually let me like change trains a little bit, like in what you do now, right? Because money is a very personal conversation because people make it personal, right? We've already kind of leveled on that. And you bring this just very blunt, plain approach, like this is fact. And this is the data point, and here are the options, right? And that's really all it is. It's making choices. But when we deal with these, people manage those conversations in different ways. Are you finding your clients now coming to you at different places in the conversation, having gotten information using any type of AI, or if they're hearing about all these fintech things that are coming about now? Is that something in your world that you keep a pulse on?
I have a combination. Some of my clients send me their parents and they have time, so they start Googling. And I always caution against following Google advice. Every situation is different, and we need to stress test plans against reality, against volatility, against current affairs, right? That's why the importance of having a very close relationship with us is there, right? They get curious. They Google a lot. They chat GPT a lot. And it's like literally we're open to that. And we might not have all the answers, but I'm for sure going to find it for them. And it's fun because sometimes they ask questions that I'm like, so what happens if, for example, somebody asked once, okay, the insurance doesn't cover suicide, but what happens if it's assisted death? And I was like, nobody has asked that. So, of course, I went on my little mission to find out the answer. And I mean, I won't bore you with the details, but it still covers. But initially I was like, wasn't that technically suicide? Yeah, but no.
It gets sketchy, right? There's gray area. And that's, I think, thank you for answering that question, because that's what people in all industries, right, are coming armed with information. The accuracy of that information applied to their situation, though, varies a lot, right? It's the same thing. I remember when WebMD came out, and I'd have conversations with my doctor, and everyone thinks they're a doctor now. They have WebMD. You look at symptoms and then you think you're dying or whatever it is. But again, it's going to an expert applies the information that you are able to gather. And I'm not knocking anyone listening on Googling, on ChatGPT, on doing any of that stuff. Like, it's good to arm yourself with information because it enables you to ask really great questions. Like, that's a really great question. But you still have to have the context of the individual or the family or the situation to make that information the most leverageable.
100%. And what we do is we create the space for our clients to be able to sit down, breathe, and say, what's my situation? How does this apply to me? How does this apply to the future, to my kids? And even within the family, a conversation is very different. Like, I have 3 kids, and I cannot have the same conversation with 3 kids because they have different level of maturity, different relationship with money. One saves the last penny, the other one spends the last penny, and the other one has no idea, but the new brand is out, so we want it. So, and I promise you, I feed them the same stuff, and they live in the same house. But we're all different, right? So it's kind of like really customizing a conversation to what applies to them and asking probing questions to see if they understood.
Yeah. And I think, parenting, aunting, supervising, managing, leading, anything dealing with people, you're a constant detective if you're doing it well. That's kind of my perspective. You're playing detective constantly because there is no one size fits all approach to dealing with a human being.
And when people ask me, and today I was doing a little interview asking me what's the worst thing people do, I think it's either paralyze or follow their golf buddy's advice, because they're not applying it to their own situation. They don't have all the elements in place. Not all the questions have been asked. And my golf buddy and I could be best buddies, but he inherited a ton of money from their parents. Not my case.
Right.
So.
Yeah. different context. Like I always tell people, right? AI outputs are predicated on human inputs, right? Garbage in equals garbage out. But no matter how much you put in there, if you're not feeding it the full picture of context, which literally the full picture of a life in context is impossible to feed a computer at this point. Like you're not going to get an exact answer, but it's something that can get you closer to your answer a lot faster.
And even then, whatever answer it gives you, you have to spend those 2 seconds thinking, does this make sense?
Yeah. And does it make sense for me? Does it make sense in my life, in my world, in my situation? And that's, and I find that interesting because in professions such as, wealth management, financial planning, all of these things, you're having these conversations. People come armed with information, some of it erroneous, some of it not applicable to their situation, and some actually really great to make good questions. So you're empowering, like these tools all empower our consumers to come at us differently. I would love to know, how are you and your team using any automations, AI, or any type of technology in your practice?
As much as we can. I think technology, and it's funny, I've given many presentations on that. Technology is your friend, not your foe. You have to use it with caution. You have to use it with permission. We record, meetings to take notes. We always ask for permission, and that allows me to actually focus on what the client is saying, as opposed to taking notes and like, what did he say? Was it a 4? Was it a 12? I don't remember. So note-taking tools, phenomenal. It helps me for compliance purposes. It helps me stress test situations. Everything that can automate the flow of annual reviews and sending out messages that I want my people to spend their time in what they're adding value, not in something that can be replaced by machine.
Yes. Like say it louder for people in the back. Focus on what humans do best to add value and do the rest with the machine. Can I, real quick, go back to something you said about the stress test, because I want to hear how you're doing this.
Okay. So, the economy is bumpy, bouncy, and wacky right now, right? Whether you love him or hate him, Trump is in power and he changes his mind every other day. So we don't know what's going on. And at least for Canada, when the US catches a cold, Canada gets pneumonia, right? So we are just, when you were kids and you used to hold hands and everybody run around, the last one gets all whacked around. That's us. So some people that are about to retire are going into retirement blind. And our clients, we've shown them plans for 5-10 years where we say, if everything goes to hell in a handbasket, you're still okay. This is where you have to go, as opposed to showing them plans where everything is, flowery and pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows. And then they run out of money at 89. And then they have to go find a job at Walmart, as a greeter, because they can't eat, or they have to depend on the national health system that is shrinking in capacity every single day. So I always say that I'm not the good news fairy. We do the plans and we say, if you don't do anything, this is where you're headed. And if things go sideways, this is where you're headed. And if things go happy, this is where you're headed. Based on what you're telling me that is important to you, so the humanizing side of things, where we talk about lifestyle, family dynamics, current family situation, all that stuff. This is, if it goes to hell, this is what it looks like. And if it's a happy moment, this is what it looks like. Probably the reality is somewhere in the middle, right? And that is in the middle, assuming you do it early enough with enough time to recover any downturn from the market. And I'm very cynical with markets. I know that by the time I wake up, China just went to sleep, and nobody called me to tell me, we traded this one or we did that one.
Right.
So I'm stick to something. Let's figure out a plan. Let's figure out what you're really comfortable with, and we're going to have human conversations. And if you're telling me that you have to check your statements every day, that tells me that you're not comfortable with the risk you're in. But I'm also, if you're just tossing your plan in a drawer and you're not following it, it's not representing you either. It has to excite you. So my job is to keep the human side of things, have the plan with a pulse.
Now, a plan with a pulse, that's a good line. That's a very good line. So you're using AI, automations, technology to help you stress test, plot out these scenarios so you have these better conversations so you can give a more realistic approach.
Yeah. And the other thing too is I speak 4 languages, and depending on what I'm talking about is the language I think. So sometimes I have like long, lengthy conversations with ChatGPT, and it helps me with translation.
Mm-hmm.
And translation in a way that people will understand the message I'm trying to get out. If you try to translate something literally from Spanish into English, you will no doubt end up in hot water, or the other way around.
It's agua caliente, as it is,
exactly, right?
So
I have my own chats with it. And I'm like, so what do you think about this? Oh, that's a dumb idea. So it's at a level you can have conversations. And if it gives me a wonky response where I'm like, no, dude, try again. That's not what I meant. So it's a me machine conversation before I put it out to the actual situation where I need to be able to convey the complex into simple words for my clients. My job is to simplify my clients' lives. If I come back just the financial models, I'm not doing any favors to anyone.
Right. Well, I think there's a couple things you said that I want to make sure to highlight for everyone listening, because these are both like excellent use cases, right? So you're using it as a conversation partner for you to think out your thoughts. So whereas before ChatGPT times, right? Now we have a before and after. Not that you're not doing this with human partners as well, but a lot of us, we used to have sounding boards that we'd go to and we'd have to wait to get on someone's calendar to have a conversation. You can use generative AI to have these conversations to solidify your thoughts so that then when you do go to that human, you're not spending 30 minutes of their time saying, hey, here's what I'm thinking. How can I do this better? You're taking 10 minutes, 5 minutes. So saving everyone different types of effort. And so I think that's something we often think of. People have said to me, well, you're using ChatGPT to, organize this or help you write this, or isn't that's cheating? I said, how is that any different if I made a draft of something and went to a human editor? Is that also cheating? And again, I'm not saying when it's pulling information from public IP, intellectual property, that's very different. But I trained my own model based on my books, my articles, my podcast, my way of speaking. I don't allow it to pull external information in, and I have it write content for me when I need it. And then I do a human in the loop. I edit it at the end. To me, that's not cheating. That's efficiency.
Yeah. And it's also a personal challenge when you think about it, because that's when you need to really prove what you're made of.
Yes. Yeah. If this machine can be better than me constantly at something that I claim to be an expert at, then wow, I really need to up my game. And for me, it gives me good writing, but I have to add my humanness on top of it, even though it's trained pretty well. It's gotten very, very close, but there's still that extra step. So I love that you say you're using it kind of like as that conversation thing. And the other thing that you said is I'm going to, contextualize this, the curse of knowledge. You're an expert in your field. So while you could explain something maybe in 5 or 6 words that makes sense to you, those same 5 to 6 words are going to make no sense to somebody who's not a financial expert. And so using these tools to help you be more succinct and clear in how you're communicating these complex ideas to clients, you said that incredibly well.
Well, again, that's kind of like, I use a lot of analogies. So when I explain, term insurance versus whole life insurance, and, renting versus owning, or analogies work well. I find that if I talk to my client about an IRR and the beta and the alpha and the blah, 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 I haven't finished the sentence and they're like, ooh. They have, they're thinking of their grocery list. They're thinking how they forgot to pick up their kids from daycare. Everybody's at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So my job is to say, our meetings are not going to be longer than half an hour. We're all virtual, because I don't want, the traffic in Toronto is deadly. Mm-hmm. It's bad. I don't want you to show up angry. I don't want you to be rushed. I want you for half an hour, full attention. I send them a summary after every meeting just to make sure that I heard what they said and they said what we heard, and then we're on the same page. For compliance purposes, it's a beauty. And then people say, "Oh yeah, that's what we talked last time," and they're happy, and they you shrink it for them. It's not all the noise and all the stuff that's happening over their head. They don't have time for that.
Right. And now instead of typing up the summaries manually like you did 5 years ago, you get the AI summary, you check it out, maybe spend a couple minutes editing anything and then send it off, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's there to help, but not to replace, and you can't get lazy.
You can't just click play, right? And have it all like automation, humanized automation is a thing, but humanizing automation doesn't mean the human's out of the loop. It means you have a lot of things automated, but there's still a human in the loop checking things.
Yeah, and there should be, because otherwise, how do you show your value, right? To me, humanizing automation is really using technology not to replace people, but to elevate you. And that frees up your time, it reduces your stress, it creates the space for more meaningful conversations that are not happening. And it's, in my case, I have a case of self-diagnosed ADHD. I have strategic conversations in my head that I can actually put on paper before I share with people, right? Mm-hmm. So it's more about making systems work for people and not the other way around.
Yes, absolutely. I always tell people, you come to me, you ask me, hey, I need a tool. What's the best AI tool? I said, there's no one best tool. It depends. I said, what's the human goal you're trying to accomplish or the human experience you're trying to create? Then what's a business goal, metric, key performance indicator you're trying to pair it with? Tell me those things, then I can direct you to a tool. But unless you know those two things, you're looking at technology in the wrong way.
100%. I always say when people come to us and for a plan, I say, imagine this is the emergency room and you tell me how much in pain you are, right? I need to know everything. I need to know if you took drugs. I need to know if and all your dirty secrets, because if I send you to surgery and you're under the influence of something, it's not going to end well. Mm-mm. And I need to know what happened, family history, family dynamics, savings, financial philosophy. Tell me everything, so I can send you to the right specialist. But the triage has to happen up front, and the person needs to be open about it. We sign all the NDAs you want, confidentiality contracts and so on, because it's not really nobody's business to know who our clients are. But I need to know all their dirty secrets, because otherwise the plan is going to be based on lies.
Yeah. And that's any consultant in any industry, any expert. If you're trying to get advice from someone but not giving them a full context, then you might as well just ask the machine. Right? You might as well just ask the machine if you're not going to provide full context at this point. Okay, one of the things that you said, and I want to circle back to a little bit because I want to go in a little more depth, because I think it's very savvy, the why behind this, that you do all of your meetings virtual. And yes, of course, everyone, yes, you can record it. Yes, there's compliance. Yes, you can get transcripts easily. Yes, you can get AI summaries. And of course, all of that stuff is automated, and that is amazing. I could go down a whole other episode just on that process alone. But your why is amazing. It's because I want a half hour of your focused time. I don't want you rushing from another appointment. I don't want you stuck in traffic. I don't want you stressed before you come in here any more than you might otherwise have been in a day. It's like wherever you are, you're in a private place for 30 minutes of time, and that's it. Were you always like that in the business?
I want it, but before COVID, people were offended. If I suggested a virtual meeting, they're like, you don't want to see us? I'm like, well, I do, but it's going to take you an hour and 50 minutes to get here, 20 to find parking, $80 to park. We're going to have a half an hour meeting, and then it's going to take you an hour and a half to go home. You want that? But they would be offended. And now it's literally par for the course. And when we see our clients outside of Zoom or Google Meets or whatever we use, it's for a social thing. Hey, how are you? How are the kids? What's been going on with your life? We rarely talk business unless it's
Mm-hmm.
pressing for them. I play a lot of golf, and sometimes you go out with your client and they tell you what's going on with their kids and their life and their family and all these things. But it's not the numerical, detailed, heavy lifting. It's
Right.
more the human interaction that I was able to free up time so we can play golf or go for a bike ride or go for lunch or whatever it is. So the human side remains
Yes.
because the machine stuff happened.
Yes. Two things. Number one, next time I'm in Toronto, I'm hitting you up because I am also a golfer, and we can
Hey.
talk shop. But the other thing is this that you said, like before COVID, right? People are doing it. I had the same problem with. I'm like, let's meet, let's do this. And then as soon as I get on it and experience it, and this was like 2015, 2016, when the technology was reliable enough to do it regularly, people were like, oh, this was great. I'm like, yeah, it's much better than a phone call. It's, you get to see some expressions and experience some things. So I think it's really interesting that we look at, there was a global situation that forced the usage of virtual meetings and everything. But then you see tools like ChatGPT, you see automations, and a lot of people are hesitant to pick up on it because there hasn't been that external force that says you have to do this to stay relevant. But I think what businesses are finding is you actually do have to be aware of this and its possibilities to stay relevant.
And the other thing I absolutely love about virtual meetings is if I had to have the couple show up at my office, the chances of both making it would be slim to none. Everybody's busy. And because of a terrible experience I had, I never did house visits because no thank you. When I have the couple in the same room, I can read, or in the same Zoom room, I can read body behavior. If I see one of them kind of shrinking or going back and I start losing them, I'm like, okay, hang on. Let's bring conversation back to something that is conveyable. Like I tell them, it's not that you're dumb or thick. My job is to make sure that you understand because it's your money, it's your life, your future. These are the consequences, whether you do or you don't. So I kind of bring everybody to the table and they feel equal. And sometimes I hear that, no, he does the finances, I do the kids. That's fine, but you need to know where things are.
Yes. Yes.
Or at least who to call.
No. And what is actually there in existence, right? So to summarize kind of like where we've come from, because our time is wrapping up already. What a great conversation. I think it's really fascinating when you take something very, in some circles, taboo to talk about, in others stressful, in many very ego driven and emotional, but when really it's data, it's numbers and options and, decisions to be made. Taking something like that and how technology in this case, and Elke shared many examples of how you can, humanize this by using it as a conversational partner to get your thoughts together, from being aware of what your clients are coming into these conversations with, what information they come in, not knowing how it applies to them, but having it at their disposal, to setting up systems for recording meetings, getting summaries, and all of these things. Models for stress testing. Like, I love how you're using these different tools and technologies in your business. And I'm so grateful you came on the show to share them. Before we wrap up, is there any last thought you want to leave with the audience?
No, I think we're not going to fight AI. It's here to stay and here to grow. It's like trying to, start an avalanche and try to put the snow back up. It doesn't work, right? It's here, it's growing, it's real. Like everything, it can be used for good or for evil. Use it with common sense. Start slow. Don't see it as a foe. If you fight it, it's going to take you over as a professional. And learn it and be curious and have fun with it. And my kids, they run laps around me when it comes to technology, and I consider myself pretty savvy. But when my son does things, I'm like, I don't know. He makes little people and he makes programs and he codes. And whereas I used to go to a company that would code things for me. So either you go with it and learn at your pace and be curious about it and see it as your friend. Because if you make it your foe, it will be your foe.
100%. I love it. Well, Elke, thank you so much for joining us on Humanize Automation, and everyone else listening. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and the many others that are out there. So please, from one podcast host to all of you listening out there, if you could do the things you like, you subscribe, you rate, you comment, share all those things. Of course, that love is always appreciated. But thank you so much for tuning in yet again. And of course, I'll be back next week with another episode.